Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today we have Saba here to talk about design thinking and her journey in using it and learning about it. Could you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Saba, and I'm currently a doctoral student at the University of Southern California. And after having taught design thinking for so long, I'm really excited to be able to research and have the time to kind of read a little bit more deeply about the practices from a research perspective. And my dissertation focuses on design thinking as a promising practice in K-12. So I have the opportunity right now to be able to link the research to an actual school that I'll be working with.
So could you kind of talk about your project in a little more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so excited that you mentioned that, because one of the things that I really hope this dissertation does for so many people is give them like one more additional source to be able to reference why design thinking. Because I think these days people are so overwhelmed with all the different trends and all the different new words or theories or frameworks that they should be applying, that they get really confused. Well, okay, which one should I go with? Or are they the same, or are they different? And one of the things that I've always found that really differentiates design thinking is this concept of how do you start with empathy. And that I think is a really, really, really powerful yet very difficult skill to kind of learn. And so basically, one of the things that really drew me to this project was we are constantly hearing about the emerging trends, about the future of work, of the world, really, right? And everything is so big picture that I think a lot of people really struggle with, okay, that sounds great. I want my kids to be doing these. I would love to be teaching these things. But how? Like, what does it actually look like in practice? And so I'm really excited to be working with a school called Design 39 that are based in San Diego. And it's actually ironic that that's actually the place where I first learned about design thinking. So it's just so incredible to be able to kind of come full circle and now be able to do a research project on this topic and be able to kind of partner with them. And so what I really love about this project, or what I hope that it gives people, is that it's taking the research, it's taking the big picture ideas, but it's also showing an actual K-8 that's implementing it on a day-to-day basis across the curriculum in conjunction with standards. And I'm really excited to be able to kind of make that connection for people from the big ideas to what can we do tomorrow with our students. You know, like I'm sure as you experience with your students as well, what really differentiates design thinking is this idea that it's not just teaching skills, but it's also teaching mindset. Mm-hmm. So again, I think that's another area where we're constantly hearing the words like grit, resiliency, learning from failure, being comfortable with, ambiguity, making, iterating. We're hearing all these words, mm-hmm. but again, it's like, how do I actually build and develop that within not just myself, but also those that I'm teaching or people that I'm working with as well? And so to be able to really get down to the nitty gritty of like, what do those actual practices look like on a day-to-day basis is what I'm most excited for.
So how did you get connected to Design 39 in the first place?
Yeah, so it was, I was attending a conference in San Diego, and there were two teachers. I believe they were from kindergarten or first grade. I can't remember, but I remember their names. It was Stacy Lamb and Kelly Evelett. And they were doing a design thinking for STEAM, like merging like STEAM and literacy together. Mm-hmm. And so I've never heard of design thinking before, and so I went into their session, and they did a project looking at, it wasn't, what I loved the most about the project was they took how we read a storybook to a child. And you think about that concept, like so many of us are reading storybooks to kids, but the way in which they changed how they were interacting with the book is what made the experience so unique. So instead of kind of just like flipping through the pages and just asking generic questions, they asked the kids to kind of take on the role of just one of the characters in the book. And then they kind of walk them through the phase. Right. And so what I loved the most from the projects that they shared was the book was Catch That Rat. Mm-hmm. And one of the students took on the rat as a character. Okay. And so whereas typically, like everybody would always see the rat as being like the bad one in the story, they actually said, well, what does it feel like for the rat? Right. Everyone's chasing it, but maybe the rat is just scared, maybe it's hungry. And so they ended up actually making this like machine from like a paper towel roll. They wrapped in like aluminum foil and some other things going on, where you would go in as a human and come out as a rat, or you would go in as a rat and come out as a human as a way of trying to being able to understand what it's like to be in the other person's environment, or why the other person might be trying to catch you or might be scared of you.
Right.
And so it was just so simple but so powerful. And I think empathy is probably one of the most misunderstood parts of the design thinking process, right? I
Yeah.
see a lot of people always jumping to like the making, the prototyping, like that kind of phase. I see it used a lot in, say, for example, like the STEM lab or the makerspace and whatnot. But I think
Hmm.
what's particularly powerful about the empathy component is it's not, like you said, about trying to sympathize with somebody else. It's really just if we all share this common goal, we have to be able to understand what what we're scared of, but
Hmm.
also what we're excited about. And I think if you can kind of zone in on those things, change becomes so much more manageable. If you can begin to understand, because it's funny, when I used to teach design thinking, every single student used to come to the course with the problem and the solution both ready in hand.
Right.
And so I think, a lot of this is like, it's common sense, but it's not necessarily common practice.
Right.
So, if you think about teachers are designing each and every single day, right? I
Hmm.
mean, and when you think back to like lesson planning, it's like, oh my God, that was like constant prototyping, constant iteration, constant empathy,
Yeah.
constantly trying to define what is it that I want my students to take away from this lesson.
Right.
But we don't necessarily go through the process in as meaningful of a way sometimes as design thinking kind of forces you to do. So I like that it makes you take a step back and kind of just like, go through a process where you're not coming with the problem, the solution, and everything all packaged in one. So when I was director of innovative learning for the for at USC, they had a physician assistant program, and I was when I was working there. Actually, what got me there in the first place was this project. They had a capstone course that their graduate students would take at the end of the program for about a semester, and it was a course that was not very well received. And one of the reasons for that was the students just didn't understand the why. And so that became a really big part of what we did was talk to them about the future of work, talk to them about why these skills and these mindsets are so essential for them going into the industries that they're going into. But it was funny, like I said, they would come with like the problem and the solution in hand at once. And so the premise of the course was, now that you've learned the content, you've had some time doing rotations in the field, we want you to come back and kind of identify one health challenge or one concern that you saw that
Hmm.
really resonated with you, and what might you design for that community. So it was very focused. It wasn't sort of very broad. But the students, for example, would like, this is like, this is kind of one of the things in the beginning. It would be things like, oh, we're going to address childhood obesity. Okay, well, great. How are you going to go about doing that? And they would make like poster boards.
Right.
And it's like, you know what I mean? If it was
Yeah.
that easy for everyone to understand the healthy plate, we'd have the healthiest planet in the world.
Right.
But it's like, what is preventing people from achieving those goals?
Right.
Children are not born wanting to be obese. So
Right.
let's really dig deep.
Hmm.
And so that's really where they started to get into it and where things became really interesting. And yeah, so I got to do that, and it was an amazing experience. Yeah, definitely. And I think that goes back to the empathy piece, right? If you can really target in on what matters to people, either something they're scared of or something they're really excited for,
Hmm.
if you can hone in on one of those two aspects, I think that gives you the foundation to crafting a really compelling story that
Right.
will get people interested, at least, in what it is you're trying to do.
What recommendation do you have for new teachers who want to try design thinking?
Oh, okay. So I actually have a video I made on this very topic, and I will send it to you so you can actually attach it somewhere.
Okay. Yes.
Because one of the things I absolutely recommend is a game called The Extraordinaires. Have you ever tried it?
No, no.
Oh my
Please
God.
explain it. Please
It
explain
is
it. Yeah.
It is absolutely incredible. And anytime I do a workshop, anytime I do anything at all, I always have that be people's initial experience. And here's why. So a lot of times people will default to some of the things that Stanford has, which is great, I think, if you're more in an enterprise setting.
Hmm.
So like the wallet activity or something like that. And while teachers will enjoy the process, they won't make a connection to their classroom.
Right.
They'll be like, well, this is great, but I teach English.
Right.
Like, this is great, but I just don't, like, maybe during free time.
Right. Right.
And so what I love about the Extraordinaires is they have basically a set of character cards. And so, for example, you might have like, oh, I wish I had it with me. They have a set of character cards, and basically, I don't usually have some cards lying around. They have a set of character cards, and the character cards basically are fictional. So, for example, they have like a mermaid, and they might call it like a merman or something, or they might have a zombie, or they have a ninja. Actually, is the really interesting one. And on the front of the card is the typical stereotype that would come to mind if I say ninja right now. Like that image you see in your head is the front of the card.
Mm-hmm.
But then you flip the card, and there's about 4 or 5 different settings where the ninja is doing something that really challenge your perception. So like one of them is like the ninja's playing as part of a rock band. And so what you do in that first process is you basically try to empathize with that character. So like, oh, like what are all the things we like see, that we think, that we wonder?
Mm-hmm.
And I love pairing this activity with like the visible thinking routines from like Harvard's Project Zero, because it really guides people through. Or you can even use the Stanford, see, think, feel, do. So that's the first one, is you're just really trying to empathize with your character. Then the game has what it calls project cards. And so there's a couple different categories. They've got like clothing, transportation, utensils, housing, and there's like clothing, I think, is the other one. And basically you get to choose one of those projects. So basically, let's say I want to design housing for the ninja. And so now that's my design challenge. And so sometimes you might want to go back to that empathy piece to kind of consider like, okay, the ninja in that context. But what I really love about it is they have something called think cards along the way. And you can actually take those think cards and apply them to any lesson. But the think cards, sometimes kids are like, well, that's all I know about the ninja. I don't know anything else. Or like, well, that's all I can think of. The think cards give the kids a prompt. And so if somebody is kind of stuck in their thinking, it will prompt them to kind of think about something they maybe hadn't considered. And you can give out as many of those think cards as you want. And then from there, you basically design what it is you come up with. And so first thing, there's 2 things that happen every single time I do this. Number one is people automatically make a connection to their classroom. So they'll be like, oh, so like if we were doing like characters, my kids could kind of use it there. In history, like, oh, it could be like historical figures. And the other really significant thing that happens once they get into the actual making phase is that they'll make a connection to science or math. Like at some point, physics or the environment or something will come up for somebody as a question as they're building. So automatically teachers, and they do this in a group is what I recommend, but automatically they will make a connection to not just their curriculum, but also the importance of an interdisciplinary curriculum. And so I just found, and also its price point is so accessible. Like it's not expensive. You don't need one for every single teacher. I mean, you could, but you totally share the whole box and package. It is just one of the most powerful design thinking experiences I've ever facilitated.
Where can people find you as you progress in your project?
Yeah, absolutely. They can find me on Twitter or Instagram at AskMissQ, AskMSQ, or I post a lot on LinkedIn as well, or my website, which is just askmissq.com.
Cool. Thank you for chatting with us. I'm excited to see your progress. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for all the support. It's always so exciting when you meet like other fellow people who are like passionate about design thinking.
Right. For sure. All right. See ya.
Bye.